The ACC Tournament begins tonight. Let's roll.
You are Locked On Syracuse, your daily podcast on the Syracuse Orange, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome everyone into Locked On Syracuse. I'm Jackson Holzer, and who's fired up? Because the ACC Tournament for Syracuse begins tonight against NC State at 7 o'clock, and we're going to break it all down. We're going to talk about the tournament as a whole and the keys tonight for beating NC State. And this, guys, is a tournament where Syracuse typically doesn't fare too well in, but could this year be any different? And we're going to talk all about that. So excited for tonight. The ACC tournament officially beginning for Syracuse. Of course, it started last night with NC State defeating Louisville. So now we know who Syracuse is playing for the third time this season. And then after that, well, it's Duke, and then who knows? So let's start with what Syracuse needs to show in the ACC tournament to even have a puncher's chance at winning. Puncher's chance. Because 7 seeds in the tournament have won before. So I'm not going to say it's impossible and they would need a miracle, but, to just have a fighter's chance of winning this thing. Virginia Tech did it a couple years ago as a 7 seed. That's just off the top of my head. It's possible. The path is there. You can do it. Number 1 for Syracuse. Perhaps the biggest thing, and this will kind of be an overlap with the NC State game tonight, but it's, please don't be rusty. Please don't be rusty. It's been 8 days since Syracuse has last played. Doesn't really feel that much to me, but it has. Syracuse ended the regular season last Tuesday with a loss at Clemson. And while every other team seemed to be finishing on that Saturday, Syracuse was not. They weren't. Now, here's the good news. While it may be concerning that Syracuse has 8 days off and they could be rusty, don't get me wrong, but this has actually happened 3 times this season. 3. And Syracuse won all 3 of those games. When Syracuse has had at least 8 days off this season, they're 3-0. And those wins were against Oregon, Pitt, and Boston College. So this season has shown that when they get a long extended break, they can still get the job done. And if you noticed in those games, Syracuse came out well in all of them. Right? They blew out Oregon. They played well against Pitt and against Boston College, even though the offense wasn't necessarily going in the first half against the Eagles. It was the defense that really propelled them. And when the offense started finding a little bit more rhythm towards the end of the first half, that's when Syracuse got out to its big lead. Now, in the second half, it got a little bit tighter. But regardless, they're 3-0 when they've had at least 8 days off, which is what they have going into tonight. But there's more. When you make it 5 days off, Syracuse is 5-1. 5-1 with at least 5 days off this season. So this team has shown through their record that when they have a long extended break, that they are not necessarily automatically going to come out flat. But still, it's important for, especially tonight, to not come out flat against NC State, who played last night. And against Duke with a little bit of a long layover, same thing's going to apply to them. You don't, if they have to play against Duke, which would be if Syracuse beats NC State, The same key applies to them, which is if you're a Blue Devils fan, you don't want them coming out rusty. The next thing that Syracuse needs to show to have a puncher's chance in the ACC tournament, or it's really what they need to do. What they need to do to win this thing. Chris Bell, throughout the whole tournament, the entire tournament, needs to be the second or third scoring option on this team. Second or third. The reason why I say that, again, the data backs it up. When Chris Bell scores at least 18 points in a game this season, he's done it 9 times. Syracuse is 9-0. When Chris Bell scores 18 points in a game or more, the Orange have not lost this season. What does that tell you? He needs to be the second or third option. But again, let's go a little bit further with Chris Bell and him being the second or third option. He's scored at least 10 points in a game in 17 of Syracuse's 31 games. Okay? Know it's a lot of numbers, so feel free to stop the video at any time and go back and rewind. Chris Bell, when he scores at least 10 points, Syracuse this season is 14-3. 14-3. When Chris Bell is in double figures. I think that kind of shows you the importance of Chris Bell and getting him his shot. We're going to talk about that, especially against NC State coming up tonight. But as a general key for this tournament, you cannot have games or game where Chris Bell drops 2 points, a donut. You can't have that happen. If Syracuse wants to have a puncher's chance at winning this thing, they need Chris Bell to at least be in double figures for every single matchup. The data backs it up from this season. 14-3 when he scores at least 10 points. And 9-0 when he goes off, which is 18 or more in my book. He needs to be the second or third option, scoring-wise, on this team, behind Judah Mintz and tied with or surpassing J.J. Starling. Chris Bell is the only one on this team who can explode from the three-point line. He's pretty much the only one. If he's hitting his shot and he's scoring points, this team is tough to beat. But when he's not, or Syracuse isn't looking for him, all of a sudden the floor spacing's a little bit tighter, and it's tougher for Syracuse to generate offense. Hence why their record is not very good when Chris Bell is not in double figures. If I'm doing the math off the top of my head, if they're 14-3 when he scores at least 10 points, and they would finish 20-11 this season, that means they only had 6 wins when he didn't score at least 10 points and 8 losses. So they're 6-8 when he doesn't reach 10 points, under 500. Now, there are plenty of more keys to the tournament. We're going to talk all about them right after this. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more, whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay guaranteed fit. Only available to U.S. customers. Mark your calendars for the Locked On College Basketball Bracket Breakdown Show, Monday, March 18th at 7 a.m. Eastern. Experts Andy Patton and Isaac Shade will break down their brackets and discuss everything you need to know to fill out a winning bracket and prepare for this year's NCAA tournament. Find the Locked On Bracket Breakdown on Monday, March 18th on the Locked On College Basketball Podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. Welcome back, everyone, into Locked On Syracuse. I'm Jackson Holzer. We talked about a couple of the keys for Syracuse to win this ACC tournament. First is come out hot tonight against NC State, right? You don't want this team to be rusty. This team is 3-0 with at least 8 days off. And number two, which is Chris Bell, needs to be the second or third scoring option for this team to be successful. The Orange are 9-0 when he scores at least 18 points in a game this season. But we're going to move on now to Judah Mintz. You think Judah Mintz is motivated for this tournament? I know he feels he should have been first team All ACC. Now, I happen to agree with the voters that under the guidelines with positions taken into account, that he should have been on that the second team was appropriate for him. And it's razor close between him and Hunter Salas, but I just prefer Salas a little bit more. I get it, but he certainly feels he should have been on that first team, and perhaps that will motivate him. So the key for Judah Mintz here, though, is a little bit different. It's not going to be score the basketball. We know Judah Mintz can score. If Judah Mintz isn't being Judah Mintz, if he's not scoring 20 points a night, Syracuse has basically no chance to win this tournament. None. But really, he needs to get hot from deep. He's not a great shooter, and we know this. He's less than 30% from three this season. We know. That's his Achilles heel. As great of a player as Judah Mintz is, he's not a great outside shooter. He can get to the free throw line. He's really athletic. He can finish around the rim. He's a decent free throw shooter. But he's just not great from range. So really, what SU needs? Well, they need Judah to get hot from deep. They don't need him to get extraordinarily hot. But Syracuse this season, when Judah Mintz shoots at least 30%. That's it. Just 30% from three in a single game. That's all. Syracuse is 10-4. 10-4 when he's making at least 30%. That means literally he can go 1 for 3. I'm not asking for much. I don't think we need him to hit 7 threes in a game. Right? That would be nice. We take that, and I think Syracuse would win 99 out of 100 times if he does that. But he just needs to not be a liability. Because when he can shoot the basketball, that adds an extra, that adds basically an extra shooter on the floor. Someone extra you got to worry about from deep. You can't just focus all your attention on Chris Bell. You have to then step up on Judah Mintz. And when you have to step up on Judah Mintz, it's lights out for the defense. Lights out, because he's quick and he can get around you and he can finish around the basket, like I said. So he doesn't need to go off from three, but can he hit that 30% benchmark every game that Syracuse is in this tournament? Because if he can hit it, they got a chance. Syracuse, like as I said, 10-4 when he does that. And by the way, he only has one game this season where he has made at least 2 threes. And I believe that came against Colgate early in the season. So if he can hit, have one of those games where he hits 4 or 5 threes, I think that would be nice too. Nice bonus. But overall, just hit an adequate number of 3-point shots. Next, moving on. Don't focus on the bracket. Focus on the task at hand. What do I mean by that? Syracuse has a game against NC State tonight. And while I can sit here and give you the whole keys for the tournament, none of it matters if you're ousted in round 1. Or really, it's round 2, but for Syracuse, it's round 1. None of it matters. Don't worry about what's coming ahead, right? You don't worry that Duke is on Thursday and that you're probably playing Clemson or Virginia on Friday, should they make it there. Focus on NC State tonight. Enough said. And finally, I'm kind of going to be contradicting myself, but this is one of my personal pleas. This is a personal plea. This isn't even a key to winning the tournament or anything like that. But can this team make the semifinals? Can this team win 2 games? Can they, please? It's kind of hard to believe that since joining the ACC about 10 years ago, not about 10 years ago, 10 years ago, Syracuse joined the ACC. And this team has never made it to the semifinals in the tournament. That includes in 2014 when the team started 25-0. That includes that year. And they've never won 2 games in this tournament, ever. They're 5-8 overall since joining the conference. They average less than a win a season in this tournament. This is not a key. It's a personal plea, and I think many of us would like a deep ACC tournament run. And then that means they got to beat NC State for the 3rd time, which is tonight. And that also means they're going to have to beat Duke somehow. They're going to have to pull off a crazy upset. They did it earlier this season against North Carolina, right? They've shown they can do it. But they're going to have to do it again in this tournament in order to win at least 2 games. So those are the 5 things that Syracuse either needs to show or that I want to see for them to compete. Number 1, don't be rusty tonight. Number 2, Chris Bell needs to be the 2nd or 3rd scoring option. Number 3, Judah needs to be at least adequate from the 3-point line. Number 4, don't focus on the bracket. Focus on the task at hand. And number 5, personal plea, please make the ACC semifinals. Please do it. I think we would all love to see a deep playoff run from this team. Now, moving on, we're going to discuss the task at hand, which is NC State tonight. Say goodbye to busted brackets because FanDuel lets you bet on every game of the tourney. Whether you're betting on a big upset or a 1 seed, it's time to go dancing on America's #1 sports book. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Folks, that's $200 to use on point spreads, money lines. You can even pick who's going to win it all. And you want to bet on Syracuse here in this ACC tournament? Well, can this team really be Cinderella? You can get them at plus 5,500 right now on FanDuel. Perhaps Judah can go on that 2011 Kemba Walker type run. I talked about how he needs to at least be adequate from the 3-point line. Maybe he has one of those games where he gets really, really hot from deep. And of course, Chris Bell, when he scores at least 18 points, this team doesn't lose. Just saying, he's done it 9 times. SU also has multiple defensive stoppers on this team. So plus 5,500, it's pretty good odds. Pretty good odds. And all you got to do to bet on it is just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and bet on college hoops until they cut down the nets. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now it's also available on Amazon Fire TV in the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channels app. Welcome back, everyone, into Locked On Syracuse. I'm Jackson Holzer, and we've discussed the general keys and some of my pleas for Syracuse to win or at least have a puncher's chance at winning this ACC tournament, which begins tonight against NC State at 7 o'clock. So, having said that, what does Syracuse need to focus on to beat NC State? This team has already beaten the Wolfpack twice this season. So it's not easy beating a team three times in 1 year. Now, let me start off by saying that DJ Horn for NC State at the time of this recording, third team All ACC again, he might not play due to a hip injury. He might not play. That's a big loss for NC State. He did not play against Louisville, and he's a game time decision for tonight against Syracuse, so we don't know if he's going to play or not. Now, Casey Morsell, though, someone you got to worry about. He's the backup, filled in against Louisville, had 25 points. So really the takeaway here is just because Horn doesn't play and he's an all-conference guard doesn't mean Syracuse should just, take the win, right? Right? It's an automatic win. No. These are still Division I basketball players. Backups can do damage too. Gonna have to just, it would be nice, right? But at the same time, it doesn't guarantee a win just because a star player is not playing. Now, moving on. More tangible is Malik Brown. He's critical in this matchup. Malik Brown's critical in basically every matchup now because he has to play center. And he was all defensive first team. He led the conference in steals at a center for the first time in the conference's history. But he has not played well against NC State this season, mainly on the score sheet. He's only scored 8 total points in the 2 matchups against the Wolfpack this year. 8. That's it. It's 4 a game. I think you would like to see Malik Brown in double figures, or at least not be a total liability on the offensive end, but mainly it's going to come from defense. NC State's got a couple of big boys down low. DJ Burns is 300 pounds. Malik Brown has got to find a way to just stay with that guy. And Burns hasn't necessarily killed Syracuse this season. And a lot of credit goes to Malik Brown on that. He only averages 11-4 against the team this year. But he's the type of guy that if NC State starts feeding him down low, he can do damage. And it's up to Malik Brown to stop him or at least slow him down. And then there's Ben Middlebrooks, who is the backup. He's a nice player. He had 12 points against Syracuse in the last matchup, 3 points in the matchup prior, I believe. But really, it's about stopping or at least containing DJ Burns, who I know they have him listed at like 270, but I mean, look at the guy. He's 300 pounds. You can't convince me he's not. Malik Brown has to just stay with him, and the whole team has to just try to box him out. That's what it comes down to. And I know Syracuse isn't the greatest shooting team in the world, but NC State is the second worst 3-point defense in the ACC this season. Teams shoot nearly 36% from deep against this team. What does that mean for Syracuse? How can the Orange take advantage of that? Well, it kind of overlaps with the keys of the tournament, which is Chris Bell. Find Chris Bell early and often, just like a few weeks ago when he hit 8 threes against this team in the first half. Remember that? He hit 8 threes in the first half against NC State. He's the type of guy that can go off. And this is the type of team that he can go off against. They are not good at preventing teams from shooting the 3 ball. They're not good. That means Syracuse's best shooter, which is Chris Bell, find him early and often because you're going to be able to get him open shots. That also means if and when he's hitting those shots, you need to keep giving him the basketball in the second half because Syracuse didn't do that last time these two teams played. They didn't do that. They didn't look for Chris Bell in the second half. He had no threes in the second half against NC State last time. That's what it means. Again, this is the type of team that Chris Bell can go off against. He's already done it before. I am begging you, Syracuse, please get him open shots early and often. And if and when he's hitting them, please just keep feeding him. So that is it for today's episode of Locked On Syracuse. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. Click that like button if you liked it. And if you really liked it, click that subscribe button and turn on those notifications. Plenty of channel updates coming along the way. I've posted it on Twitter, which I have in the description below. And I also posted it to the YouTube community page. So be sure to check that out. Plenty more content to come here on Locked On Syracuse. And hopefully the Orange pull out a win tonight.